Greetings, comrades. I hope I find you all in good health. My name is Comrade Bishop, coming from Chemicals Union and Zimbabwe Labor Center. And at the same time, I'm the member for ISO, that is the National Socialist Organization of Zimbabwe. Comrades, I just want to welcome you actually to our first meeting of the year. As we flagged our poster yesterday, we are going to discuss about the amendment bill. Maybe I can just take you back a little bit, comrades. Maybe last week you noticed that actually the cabinet approved the amendment of the constitution after the resolution number 1 actually was done actually in Mtare last year. When the resolution number 1 was done, actually most of the comrades were thinking that we don't think actually this is going to happen. But with what had happened last week Tuesday, we are all now seeing the reality that actually this the regime actually is serious actually about amending this constitution. But actually, what is worrying is that actually the resolution number 1, it seems as if actually it was going to deal with the presidential term. But when the bill actually was made public last week, we were all shocked actually to see that actually the regime is not only addressing the issue presidential term limit, but actually they are touching on a number of issues. Like removing the voters right from ZEC actually to registrar general kunatoba mdede wemakora again. They want to remove the gender commission. They want to neutralize the power of the security actually from using the constitution. A number of things actually are being touched on that, comrades. But actually, at the same time, we all know that actually the very good document actually which was produced in 2023 was never been completely implemented. Maybe most of the comrades here coming from Labour actually we all agree that actually Section 65 wasn't been implemented fully, and the regime actually has been doing everything actually in their power to make sure that actually that section actually will not be implemented. And not only that, actually, comrades. So today actually we invited a number of maybe about 9 presenters actually who are going actually to take us through this amendment bill. So we'll have actually from maybe we'll start actually with unpacking, so that actually we understand actually what is really being done actually by the regime. So we'll be having comments actually, we'll be unpacking the amendment bill. Then from there on actually we'll hear actually from the comrades actually who are coming from different organizations, speaking for their organizations. Then from there on we'll hear from Vashandi 7 that their declaration was done last year February. Then we'll close the meeting by hearing from the defense the constitution platform, which was launched on the 17th of January this year. So comrades, sit back, relax. Maybe for the next hour actually we'll be hearing from the presenters, listen to the presenters audios, read the presentations. Those who send my written presentations, please read through. When you open the group, after the presentation, actually will allow a plenary session whereby actually the comrades actually will be proceeding actually to do my discussions around presentations and then posing questions, comments, and suggesting my way forward, comrades. Amanda, you're welcome, my comrades.
Amandla Salibonani, greetings, comrades. Thank you for inviting. My name is Munya Gwisai from the International Socialist Organization, National Executive Member, as well as a member of the National Working Committee of the Defend the Constitution platform. Thank you, Comrade Chair, for the invitation, and greetings to my fellow panelists. A very important rally that we're having today, comrades. It's actually a year since 21 February when on this platform we adopted the People's Declaration to stop the 2030 agenda. At that time, ZANU-PF in September, October 2024 had just passed resolution number 1 to extend President Mnangagwa's term from 28 to 2030. And there was anger, there was outrage. And at that time, in January, war veterans, a section of the war veterans led by Bombshell Bodagezi, Knox Chikor, and others also came on the scene, openly, courageously, and bravely denouncing the movement towards 2030 and demanding that there will be no 2030. And in fact, demanding that Mnangagwa steps down immediately, not even go to 2028. Today, Geza has passed away. He's here in Harare, and his funeral will be tomorrow. We salute this hero of the democracy movement. For it not for Geza and his comrades, by now, that 2030 agenda law would already have been made law. It was only because of the mobilization of the Geza revolution, in particular towards the 31st March national shutdown, that Mnangagwa and the Ugandandas who finance and are the bedrock of his regime and administration backed down and got scared, with Mnangagwa on 17 February 2025 announcing to the world, to the nation, that he was going to step down in 2028 with on a date and time he already knew that he was a constitutionalist. So they were not able to enforce the 2024 resolution in 2025 because of fear of the masses of the people who had clearly shown their interest in the Geza revolution. It was only after the failure of the Geza revolution in October that the ZANU-PF regime and Mnangagwa got the guts to now do what they're doing. But they've even then gone further and come up with an atrocious, outrageous mutilation of the entire democratic basis of the Zimbabwean constitution. We are at a critical time. We salute Geza and his comrades that they bought us time, they delayed this. It is now our duty and responsibility to ensure that the 2030 bill shall not pass, that democracy, the own democracy, is won by the people and not a few cronies and elites. So this rally comes at a very important time. It's a rally of the working class people and radical youth to come together and see how we can ensure that victory will be certain this time around. So thank you. I will start off by a brief analysis of how, in fact, what we have under Constitutional Amendment number 3, Bill of 2026, is not a small thing. It, in fact, amounts to a constitutional coup in operation, and why we cannot wait a day longer to mobilize, to fight, and stop this. So I'll look at that first, and then we go there. Thank you. So thank you, comrades. I have circulated a draft document, my presentation in draft form, where you can look at. But I will start make this presentation in terms of unmasking the bill, and then part of the way forward and so forth that we can discuss later. So as I've said, what in fact Cabinet has what he has done in Constitutional Amendment number 23 Bill of 2026, that it adopted on 10 February 2026, is an existential threat to constitutional democracy in this country. The paramount and supreme constitutional principle that underlies the Constitution of Zimbabwe is the doctrine of people's sovereignty. In the Liberation War, this is what we meant when we said one man, one vote, one woman, one vote. It is the principle that the power to govern is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. It is the principle that is captured in Section 3 of the Constitution in the founding values and principles that says there must be respect for the people of Zimbabwe from whom the authority to govern is derived. And you then look at the constitutional architecture, you will see that it is in terms of fundamental areas of the Constitution, that is in relation to the office of the president, in relation to Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights, in relation to the people's right to the land, to land. When you look at the constitutional provisions around that, dzakatenderedzwa neruzhowa, enshrined constitutional safeguards to ensure that any changes to the constitution in this area must initially be passed by a special majority of parliament, 2/3, and then ultimately and fundamentally must be passed by the people of Zimbabwe voting in a referendum. And as you have seen in the paper that I have circulated, the constitution therefore requires that if you are going to amend the term limit of the president, who's allowed a maximum of 2 terms of 5 years each, you have to have a constitutional bill that is passed by 2/3 majority in parliament, the National Assembly and Senate, and then after that, within 3 months, you must have a constitutional a referendum in which the people of Zimbabwe exercise their sovereignty and vote. That's number one. Under section 328 of the constitution that I've posted up there. Then secondly, if you want to ensure the constitution also says that amendment cannot benefit a sitting president. So if you're a sitting president, the constitution in 3287 says you cannot benefit from a term extension to your term. Then it says if you want to amend that prohibition under 3287 that says you cannot benefit, you require a second constitutional bill, which must be passed again by 2/3 majority in parliament and again passed in a second referendum of the people of Zimbabwe. That is section 328 subsection 8. It is these fundamental provisions that have been butchered by the 2030 bill. They've butchered them in several ways. Number one, they've lumped together in one constitutional bill the amendments to the extension of the president term to 2030 and 7 years after that. And secondly, the second amendment to allow President Mnangagwa to benefit from this term extension. They can't do it in one constitutional bill as they've done. It has to be done in 2 separate constitutional bills. The first one of extension starting first, being passed by parliament, then approved by the people of Zimbabwe. Then after that, have a second constitutional bill passed by 2/3 of parliament, passed in a second referendum. That is the second violation, the butchering. The third butchering is that the process that cabinet has done will just go through to parliament without going to a referendum. So that again is in outright violation of the provisions of section 328 subsection 7 and 8. Cabinet does not have that power. The powers of cabinet are laid out strictly in section 98, which says executive authority derives from the people of Zimbabwe and must be exercised in accordance with the constitution. So cabinet and the president are the executive. They cannot exercise authority outside the constitution and one that subverts the sovereignty of the people of Zimbabwe. That is what they've done. Section 3 is also very clear. Respect that legislative authority comes from the people of Zimbabwe. So that is the fundamental principle that has been butchered here. And they know it. Let's be clear about it. Patrick Chinamasa, when resolution number 1 was passed in September 2024 in Bulawayo, answered that question. He said, yes, you can amend the constitution to allow 2030, but you cannot do it without the 2 national referendums in separate constitutional bills. It's very clear. I'm just going to post Chinamasa saying that to ZANU-PF conference. And for that, he was booted out and replaced by a junior, unelected, and legally literate Justice Minister Ziyambi, who has now brought this bill. But Mnangagwa knows that. He's a lawyer, long-serving Justice Minister in Zimbabwe. That is why on the 17th of February 2025, he promised that he would step down in 2028 on a date he knew and a day he knew, because he was a constitutionalist. He made the same solemn promise to the world in an interview on CNN and in Beijing. So what is clear, comrades, is that what is happening now is a usurpation of the people's authority and power under the Constitution. A coup is underway. The question is, what do we do about it? The bill marks, if it passes, the burial of the 2013 Constitution, which was passed by over 90% of Zimbabweans. The question is, what do we do? In order to fully understand this, comrades, and make a way forward, we have to understand the major class and political interests and drivers of the bill. That is what I will then conclude with. Thank you. Comrades, to understand this bill, we've got to understand two things. Understand it from a ruling class perspective, as well as from a broad class struggle perspective. At the first level, this bill is a Gananda oligarch capitalist weapon for state capture and to bury Chiwenga and Chamisa. It is to facilitate a life presidence from Mnangagwa, perpetual ZANU-PF rule, and the generational succession of the liberation generation being overtaken and succeeded by the thieving Gananda capitalist oligarchs led by Tagwire and Chivaro. As in fact had been tried by the G40 in 2017, but was stopped by the 2017 coup. So the point here, comrades, and you see that by the requirement that the election of the president would now be done by parliament rather than the people of Zimbabwe. The reason for that is very clear, comrade. It is they have studied the election pattern over the last 3 elections, where consistently in the last 2 elections, Mnangagwa barely squeezed 55.5% in 2018, 52 in 2023, barely squeezed beyond the necessary 50% plus 1, with Chamisa very close at around 44-45%. So the ZANU-PF, Mnangagwa, and the Gananda oligarchs know that in an open and fair election, they will not stand against Chamisa. Chamisa represents the great movement of workers and youth of 1996 to 2000. That is where he stands on. He's got his own charisma and so forth, but fundamentally, ultimately, that is why he has been able to do so well. A movement of the working class against ISAP, against dictatorship. That is what they know they cannot defeat. So for that reason, they have therefore come up with this provision to say the president will be elected in parliament. And then secondly, because ZANU has had this inherent majority based on the rural vote, based on land, on cohesion, but also to make sure that that parliament vote of ZANU-PF remains as it is and even stronger. They've introduced other amendments in the constitutional bill, amendments, for instance, that now will no longer, chiefs will no longer, the restrictions that stop chiefs from being politically partisan are being removed, so that the chiefs and the headmen can become the commandos of ZANU-PF openly and legally to ensure that it gets its majority in the rural areas. Similarly and equally, the president will be given an extra 10 votes in Senate, so that we have what happened in 2000, where Mugabe was able to use that to get a majority. And equally, they are also moving away voter registration from ZEC, compromised as it is, to a registrar general appointed by the president to ensure that they can manipulate. Same with the delimitation committee. All those are designed to ensure that a parliament controlled and bought by these Ganandas will take over. So that is the game, comrades. The reality for them is that these Ganandas who have looted billionaires will know that with the 300 Ford Raptors, they will buy the whole parliament, just like Wanata Gure were able to buy the ZANU-PF Central Committee with 300 luxury cars. So the keys to the State House are now just 300 Ford Raptors away for Tagwire, Chivayo, and company. And therefore, goodbye to Chamisa and Chiwenga's path to the presidency. So that is what is there. And their purpose is then to have privatization, austerity, neoliberalism on austerity once they take over the state, what we're already seeing now. But be very clear, comrades, the ultimate targets of this bill are the working class. Just like when Mugabe, after the 1987 Unity Accord, came up with the 1987 Executive President's Amendment laws, immediately 2 years within that, ISAP was introduced, which hammered the people, the workers of this country, the villagers of this country, deindustrialized this country, informalized the economy, brought massive poverty. on the basis of the iron fist of the 1987 executive presidents. Similarly, these executive presidents that we are now returning to without even any pretense of people's mandate is and will be used to smash the working class, unions, informal economy, and to allow massive looting. So the workers, the youth, the informal economy, villagers must know that they are the fundamental objective of this bill, and that is why they must be in the forefront of resisting it. They cannot entrust and outsource this struggle to the middle classes, to liberal opposition. Those ultimately will facilitate, and they lack the power that the workers have to bring this country to a halt, as Geza showed us on 31st August. And that ultimately is the only way to stop this bill. We have the power to do so. So I stop here. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Takawa Firajo, and I'm coming from the Progressive Teachers Union of Zimbabwe. It is important that a wrong formula can never bring a good product. So constitutional changes must therefore be legitimate and involve the generality of the masses. Political expedience and constitutional manipulation is a recipe for disaster. Zimbabwe has been sinking deeper and deeper into malice and poverty because of a defective political system of sultanism and a defective economic system of statism, cronism, legism, and the failure of Zimbabweans just to come together and agree on a national consensus. So currently there is need for national synergies, there is need for collaboration, there is need for complementarity rather than competition. Because in resisting what is defective in terms of perpetuating the interests of a political party, we would need to be united rather than to be disunited, because united we stand and disunited will perish. There's need for a national consensus on a modus operandi of illegality. We need as different groups to agree on how best we could respond to this illegality that is shredding the constitution. But as Labour, we are worried that there is a drift from the current constitution before some of its good tenets are even implemented. I'm sure you are aware that as civil servants, we are still run by an archaic, an obsolete statutory instrument 141 of 1997, when the constitution in terms of section 65 is clear of our labor rights. So we need a new labor forum that would allow us collective bargaining rather than the current collective begging under a statutory instrument. So we are worried that there is acclimatization to tearing the constitution before some of its good principles and tenets are actually made into reality. But there is need that all the different groups, be it GPC, be it Labour Forum, be it the churches, be it the youth, converge on an agreed modus operandi in terms of resisting against the mutilation of the constitution. So I think we need more discussions on how best we could respond to ZANU-PF tearing the constitution. Although, of course, the response is not political, but we need at least a mass movement towards the response rather than isolated efforts. Isolated efforts would never succeed. There is need for that consensus. We should learn from the past. Even if you look at the 1945 railway strike, although it was a railway strike, but it also involved even the grievances of the peasants. So we need that collaboration and ensuring that we are moving forward as Zimbabweans, and any response must take that national consensus against an isolated or expedient method of tearing the constitution. Unless we combine as Zimbabweans, we will perish as fools. And all our efforts must converge in terms of ensuring that we maintain a national consensus and the response is in the best interest of Zimbabweans. Thank you.
Greetings, comrades. We gather today under the shadow of a deepening crisis, but we do so inspired by the unbreakable spirit of Blessed Geza. We celebrate a man who understood that the liberation of Zimbabwe was not a finished event in 1980, but a continuous struggle against those who seek to turn our republic into a private estate. Geza stood for the principle that the people are the only masters of the constitution. We carry this torch today as we refuse to let the gains of our struggle be buried by the greed of a few. Comrades, we have noted outrage on social media, public outrage against the proposed constitutional amendments. If you look around you, there's a fire, public outrage burning in every street, every township, and every village. People are angry about corruption that bleeds our hospitals dry. They are angry about environmental destruction that leaves our land scarred for the profit of the elites. They are angry about the collapse of social services, the mass unemployment, and the drug abuse pandemic destroying our children. But comrades, outrage is not enough. Anger without organization is just noise. The Defend the Constitutional platform is here to transform the raw frustration into a solid, disciplined political response. We are moving from the politics of complaining to the politics of resisting. Emerson Mnangagwa is moving fast to amend our constitution, but it's also moving fast to destroy our livelihoods. So complaining alone is not going to be enough. We need to be solidly organized so that we give a solid political response to Emerson Mnangagwa's machination. Thanks that Comrade Bisai has solidly unpegged the nature of the proposals that has been tabled before cabinet that are said to be gazetted by the Speaker of Parliament. So I'm speaking here on behalf of the Labour Desk, and we are calling on all trade unions across all sectors, and all workers of Zimbabwe to say you are the backbone of this nation. Yes, you are effective victims of this constitutional coup. So we are calling on all workers, all unions for mining, agriculture, manufacturing, education, health, etc. Join our Labour Desk. Join this desk. We want to build a solid machinery of all working people. We're even reaching out to those who are in the informal economy. Let's come together and build solid machinery within the Defend the Constitution platform. Solid machinery that defends our livelihoods today, but also blocks these constitutional amendments. As Labour, we already know we have our tools of organizing that are already at our disposal. We need to then be moving across the country, organizing labor forums. We will be visiting all the provinces, all the districts, but we will also be visiting your factory at the shop floor level, talking to workers directly, organizing them, preparing to defend livelihoods, to defend working conditions today, but in the process also getting ready to defeat the 2030 agenda. Not apologetic, we are mobilizing for a general strike against ED 2030. So let the message be carried to every corner. We are organizing this general strike, which will definitely be the mother of all general strikes, and we are going to block that coalition of unelectables, men and women who are terrified of elections, of fair elections. We will not allow them to try to hijack our future. They want to change the law because they cannot win the hearts of the people. If they persist with their 2030 agenda, we'll shut this country down. And no labor for dictators, no cooperation with constitutional thieves. We have no illusions. We know what we are up against. We are fighting a well-organized and well-funded machinery that uses our national wealth to buy loyalty and hire private militias. But no amount of money can defeat a people who have decided to be free. Our struggle is clear. We must remove Mnangagwa now before our envisaged constitutional democracy completely collapses and before our remaining wealth is swallowed by the godfathers of corruption. going to go further after defeating Emerson Mnangagwa. We are going to go further and declare that amendments number 1 and 2 are a nullity, and they were the first steps in this illegal power grab. We pledge to the nation that these amendments will be reversed and struck from our books the moment Mnangagwa is ousted. We will restore the 2013 People's Constitution in its purest form. On every community to become a site of resistance. Confront your parliamentarians. Do not let them rest. Go to their offices and force them to carry the correct message to parliament that the people of Zimbabwe will not accept the 2030 amendment. We must organize at the grassroots to make this nation ungovernable for any regime that seeks to rule by decree rather than by consent. We will block the proposed amendments in the streets, in the factories, and at the ballot box. Mnangagwa must go and must go now. The constitution is our shield. So we are saying, wake up, all Zimbabwe, unite. I thank you.
Kwaziwai, makomrades. Zita rangu ndinonzi Godfrey Gurira, kana kuti comrade zvabenda. Wandokufa. Ndirini coordinator wema war veterans mu bato idza kana kuti mu organization idza ichangobva kuvambwa inonzi Defend the Constitution Platform, DCP. Ndinoda kupa ruremekedzo rwangu nekutenda kukuru kuZLC nokundidaidza kuti ndikupei muono kana kuti tipanane muono nenyaya yemamiriro kana kuti position yema-war veterans panyaya yekuchinjwa kwebumbiro remutemo constitutional amendment. I think it was constitutional amendment number 3 of 2026. Handidi kunyanya kurebesa nokuti ndapuwa nguva iri limited, asi ndoda kuedza muchidimbu ndikupei mamiriro kana kuti position yedu as ma-war veterans kunyaya yekuamendwa kweconstitution. Sekuziva kwedu iko zvino hatichatongotaura kuti constitution kuri kuamendwa chinhu chimwe chete. Tinoziva surprise yakaitika svondo rapera apo minister wejustice vazviyambi vakanopresenta kucabinet the proposed constitutional amendment. In fact, takatoshama kuti kaona kuti haisingori just one amendment, but it's various amendments, an omnibus sematsanangurirwa zvakaitwa. Saka nyaya iripo macomrades ndeyekuti isu sema-war veterans, sema-comrades, mhinduro yedu ndeyekuti no, a categorical no to the constitutional amendments that were presented to cabinet, which will be subsequently taken to parliament and to the people at some point. Chizoperera muvhoti yeparliament. Chikonzero ndechekuti machanges aya haasi kuitwa mukuwirirana. Machanges aya are in imposition as far as we know, or as far as we are concerned. Achiti imposition tikureva kuti they are being forced down on the people nevanhu vari kuedza kuchengetedza utongi hwavo kuitira kuti vawane nguva yekumuora vachiluta vachiita zvavanoda nenyika, ivo vanhu vachitambura kana kuti ruzhinji rwevanhu ruchitambura. Chimwe chikonzero ndechekuti mafambisirwo ari kuitwa nyaya yechange yeconstitution handiwo. Vada kuedza kumanikidzira kuitira kuti constitution, ma-constitution changes aya aitwe necabinet neparliament zvotoperera ipapo. Asi constitution inotaura zviri pachena kuti for machanges akaita se-term extension yepresident iriyo yakatangwa nayo yaiva pamberi pakatangwa nyaya yacho, and even mamwe aya atatsanangura akazotevera vakazopinzira akaita sekuti madhishi anobvumirwa kuita zvepolitics, akaita sekuti ngiriki voters roll yakudzokera kwaregistrar general ichibva kuzeki, akaita sekuti vanhu havachavhoteri president directly, president akuvhoterwa neparliament. Unomu akadaro handizvo procedure yavanoda kuseenzesa, handiyo, nokuti zviri pachena kuti nyaya idzi dzinofanira kurifewa kuvanhu vakagadzira constitution ya2013, nokuti constitution ya2013 kukosha kwayo semaziviro edu ndekwekuti constitution yakabvumiranwa nevanhu vemuzimbabwe, iconstitution yakavhoterwa neruzhinji rwezimbabwe zvikanzi tinoda kutongwa nebumbiro remutemo ratagadzira nevanhu after maconsultations akanga aitwa. Tiri panyaya imwe cheteyo, tinoda kuemphasiza kuti isu sevarwi verusununguko patakaenda kunorwa hondo hatina kunorwira kuitira kuti tiuye nepfungwa dzedu kana nesystem dzedu tizodziimpoza pane vanhu vezimbabwe. Takaenda kuhondo kuitira kuti tisunungure vabereki vedu, tisunungure nyika yedu kubva muusungwa hwecolonialism and racial domination. Vabereki vedu vakanga vasingabvumirwe kuvhota, vakanga vatorerwa minda yavo vachiiswa kusingarimiki kana kuti kusina ivhu rakanaka, vakanga vasina any rights, vaiva ma-second citizens in their motherland. Ndo zvakaita kuti tinoita take up arms, tibude, tinoita take up arms against the system. Ende patakaenda kana kuti patakabuda hakuna akaenda kuti anorwira kuti agova nezvigaro kana kuti agova nembiri kana kuti agova nemaspecial privileges kana maentitlements, asi kuti takabuda kuti tinosunungura nyika yechizvarwa kubva kwapambepfumi. So nyaya iripo ndeyekuti patakaenda kuhondo hatina yange isiri a military adventure of some kind, yaitova what we call a moral project that was grounded on the principle yekuti zvido zvevanhu, the will of the people must prevail, zvinofanira kukudzwa kana kuti zvinokosha kupinda zvido zvevakanga vakatidzvanyirira zvatinoziva kuti zvakanga zviri imposed. Saka hondo yatakanorwa hatina kunorwa kuitira kuti tigouya titi isusu takuziva stereki kana kuti tinonzwisisa stereki zvekutongwa kwenyika vanhu chitambira izvi. Ayo kwete, pfungwa yakadaro iyoyo inopesana nezvatakanorwira. It contradicts the core principles and values of the liberation struggle. Naizvozvo tinoti takaenda kunorwira kusununguka kwezimbabwe kuitira kuti zimbabwe itongwe neruzhinji, pave negutsa ruzhinji. Hatina kunorwira kuitira kuti tigouya toti isu isu ndisi taakuziva chitereki ndisi tinoziva kupinda ruzhinji rwezimbabwe, saka ruzhinji rwezimbabwe ngarutambire zvatauya nazvo isusu. Aiwa kwete, takaenda kunorwira ruzhinji rwevanhu, ende tinozviziva kuti tiri musango taiita undergo political education, taipiwa political education yakanga iri very clear on these issues, kuti tairwa hondo yevanhu, and isu taiva hove dziri mumvura, vanhu ndiyo mvura, isu tiri hove, ende kurarama kwedu kwakavavepo nokuti take takatsigirwa nevanhu. Saka philosophy yakange yehondo yakange iri deeply rooted in popular sovereignty. The armed struggle was therefore inseparable from the political mobilization process. Taipuwa zvokudya nevanhu, taipuwa pokurara nevanhu, taichengetedzwa nevanhu, ndovaitiudza vana mujibha nevamwe kuti mabhuno aripi, kuti mhandu iripi. Though in fact were legitimized by the people, by the masses. So it is very clear kuti pasina vanhu pake pasina hondo, uye pasina vanhu pake pasina kana kukunda kwakavepo kwakanopera hondo. Saka isi tinoziva kuti, ende tinobvuma kuti Lancaster House Conference, Lancaster House Conference yakabudisa Lancaster House Competition, Lancaster House Constitution paindependence yakaitwa muna 1979 tichizoita independence muna 1980 was a compromise constitution, right? Ende toziva kuti yakange handizvo chaizvo zvataida kuti tiwane Lancaster House Constitution yakabuda ku-UK. Asi toziva zvakare kuti macomrades, hondo yatakarwa yakaplay an important role in bringing about that constitution. Saka nyaya yeconstitution yevanhu yakagara itori nyaya muishu dzepolitics dzenyika yedu, kuti takagara tichiziva kuti tasati tawana constitution inodiwa nevanhu. Naizvozvo after 1980 takava nekushushikana kuti hatingawaniwo here constitution yedu, even mucontext yekunetsana kwevaitonga ZANU-PF nemamapato anopikisa. Yakaramba iri nyaya yaikosha. Toziva kuti year 2000 ndosaka kwakava referendum, a constitutional referendum, right? Saka the constitutional movement of the 1990s, mainly driven by the opposition, right? Yainvolve even macomrades akanga arimo imo vachiseenza neve-opposition kuti dai tanga tavandudza zvinhu tawana constitution itsva, vachiseenza pamwe chete nema-civic actors, vachiseenza pamwe nema-citizens. Zvakava ndizvo zvakazosvika kuti mushure problems ataka-experience akafanana ne-2008 election, kuzovako nemubatanidzwa wehurumende, kwaitwa mubatanidzwa nehurumende kwatanga kugadzirwa constitution ya2013, ende iri constitution yatinototi ndiyo yoga constitution inotaridza zvido zvevanhu vemuzimbabwe zvatakabvumirana sevana vezimbabwe kuti izvido iri ndiro bumbiro remutemo ratinoda kuti titongwe naro, not because rava riri perfect, asi kuti rakange riri the ideal at that point. Rakange riri it approximated zvatangada kuona zvichiitika pakutongwa kwedu. Nairona iva nemacompromises iyende. But chinokosha panyaya yeconstitution ndechekuti tirealize kuti constitution iyoyi ya 2013, right? Kuti constitution ya 2013 yakanga yakagadzirwa nenzira inoita kuti pasave nevamwe vanoabhusa governance system yemunyika. Ndosaka kwakaita ma-constitutional safeguards akaita se-term limit, iyo yacho yakuda kuchinjwa. Kwakaita ma-safeguards akaita sema-bill of rights, kwakaita ma-constitutional safeguards akaita se-judicial independence, nemamwe akaita se-devolution of power, parliamentary oversight, nemamwe akawanda-wanda. Kwatiri isu macomrades tikada kunyatsozvitarisisa, nhamo yatiri kuona yekurarama kwemacomrades kunonga svosve nemuromo kungadai kusimwa, nokuti constitution ye2013 inotaura zviri pachena kuti macomrades aifanira kuremekedzwa, kuti macomrades aifanira kupuhwa pension dziri decent, macomrades aifanira kuwana medical aid nezvimwe zvinhu zvakadaro zvinoita kuti vararame upenyu huri nani. Asi dambudziko rakaitika nderekuti hakuna chakateedzerwa, hakuna chakaitwa. Ndosaka tichitaura kuti dambudziko nderekuti after 2013 chatakaona imutilation ye 2013 constitution, imutilation instead of implementation. ZANU-PF hatidi kunyeperana, yakatora advantage yekuva yaiva nemajority zvayo, but not all the time, but yakaedza pese nepayaigona kumeka short yachinja mutemo wakanga waiswa nevanhu, yachinja zvakange zvabvumiranwa nevanhu. Zvimwe zvezvizvi ndezve kuti, for instance, vice president akanga akanzi anofanira kuiletwa pamwe chete napresident, vakabva yachinjwa rule of the running mate, ningiriki mutemo unozvichikuita nerunning mate. Saka pane machenjesi akaitwa akawanda neZANU-PF. Isusu nyaya yedu ndeyekuti hatibudiranei pachena. Utongi kana kuti sovereignty yenyika haisi maindividuals. Ndozvakanga zvaidzwa kuitwa ne2013 constitution. Masimba haafanire kunge ari mumunhu one, muna president oga. Ayo masimba ari muvanhu. Vanhu ndo vanofanira kudisaidha, ndo vanofanira kudetermina zvinoitika, kana kuti zvinofanira kuchinja mubumbiro remutemo. Saka zvinhu zvatinoona izvizvi zvese zvirikupropozwa izvizvi hazvisi neinterest yevanhu. Tinoziva kuti vanhu vanoda mabetter lives, vanoda kurarama kuri nani. Zviri pachena kwatiri ndezvekuti vanotonga, the ruling elite, vakuchinja bumbiro remutemo kuitira kuti vafambise zvido zvavo. Zvigananda zvakataurwa izvo ndo zviri kuinfluenza, zviri kusenza pamwe chete nevari kutonga, nemapoliticians, nema-rich business people, vanoirana macartels, nemamabureaucrats ekumilitary nekumacivilians, right? Idzodzo category ndo dzakuchinja zvinhu muprojects inotsanangurwa nguva dzakawanda as the state capture project. Pavanoita capture the state vachipractice corruption. Ndo dambudziko rapo, ndo dambudziko redu semaonero edu sema-war veterans. Ende zvatotaura isusu ndezvekuti handizvo zvatakaendera kuno. Hatina kurwira utongi hwevashoma vachidya voga rifa renyika, vanhu veruzhinji vachitambudzika. Handizvo zvatakaendera kuono. Tinozviziva kuti taitodaidzira kuti kana tadzoka kumusha tinoda socialism, tinoda fair distribution yewealth, tinoda fair distribution yeupfumi hwenyika, uye tinoda democracy, tinoda kuti masimba ekutongwa kwenyika ave muvanhu, not mumaindividuals. Saka ndo position yedu. Ndinoda kupedzisa nekutsanangura kuti nyaya iripo chaiyo semaonero edu semacomrades tichitaurana chokwadi ndechekuti apa paita undyire, apa pari kuitwa chitsotsi, apa pari kuitwa chikanari, pari kuitwa mashenanigans neavo vari kutonga. Vavariro yavo kwatiri iri pachena ndivo vaya vakatsanangurwa nafa vakaita vanyore vepanafricanism neradical decolonial school vakaita sana France Fanon kunzi vanenge vaita takeover, ndo varungu vanyowani kuzviita varungu vanyowani, ivo vari mbavha dzinorarama nekuzvipfumisa vachiluta maresources enyika ayo. Tisafina kurumbira kuti vamwe kana tadzokera kuZimbabwe ndo vachapfuma, ndo vachagarika, ndo vachagara zvakanaka, ruzhinji ruchitambura. Handisairebesa nyaya yacho, asi ndoda kuti ndipedzise nokuti isu as war veterans we are saying no to the constitutional amendment. Kwete ngazviitwe nemazvo. Kana zvanetsa zviri pachena, zviri kunzi zvirimo mubumbiro remutemo kuti kana machanges ari important akadai apo anofana kuenda for a referendum. Saka tiri kuti ngazviendeswe for a referendum, ngazviendeswe kuruzhinji for a yes or no decision. Ndatenda.
Revolutionary greetings, comrades. It's unfortunate that we actually have to discuss this topic because certain people made a resolution that we don't expect any human being to actually make, especially in a country like Zimbabwe, where we actually know the sufferings of the masses. Citizens are suffering. The country has high levels of poverty, reported by very renowned institutions such as World Bank. It's quite unfortunate that we are now even at a bill stage where it's about to be tabled in Parliament, aiming at giving effect to that ZANU-PF resolution to extend President Emmerson Mnangagwa's term of office to 2030. This development confirms what workers and citizens feared, which is a deliberate and systematic attempt to erode constitutional democracy through legislative manipulation. ZCTU, as a matter of principle, fundamentally opposes to this mutilation of the Constitution. We are equally opposed to any erosion of democracy and any attempt to take away the agency of the people in the governance of their country. I'm sure we'll be engaging fully into this issue, as we are going to be doing consultations around social contract, because there is actually currently a discussion on having a social contract at TNF. So the Constitution of Zimbabwe is a social contract on its own, adopted through a popular process. It cannot be reduced to an instrument of political survival. Any bill seeking to tamper with entrenched democratic safeguards strikes at the heart of national stability, economic confidence, and even the rule of law. Colleagues, it's unfortunate that this is happening at a time when Zimbabwe faces profound economic hardships, unemployment, informality, deteriorating public services. National priority should actually be rebuilding livelihoods, not manipulating constitutional safeguards. So yeah, I think obviously we need to have a response to this nonsense. ZCTU will be embarking on a broad consultation with our structures, affiliates, and I'm happy that we are also engaging even now with the like-minded civic and democratic organizations to determine the appropriate form of lawful resistance that we must make. I think we need to employ various strategies on this, and definitely we will also then need to advise the nation on the way forward following the consultations. I'm amenable to having any joint efforts that we can make with like-minded organizations will obviously render any solidarity, support to all progressive movements and any democratic forces opposing the erosion of constitutional governance. The labor movement is not captured. I am there. I know myself. And I will say for second that the labor movement remains steadfast, especially now. Democracy is not negotiable. Constitutionalism, likewise, is not optional. The people's sovereignty is not a gift from the powerful. It is an inalienable right. And we'll make sure that no one man or not a group of people, a constituency of fools who really want to take advantage of the entire masses through a okay, well, so my point was that for me this is not a reform. It's a power grab kind of exercise designed to suffocate democracy, silence the people, and entrench personal rule at the expense of the separate nation. So this we will reject, we will never accept it, and like I've already mentioned, that we will send in solidarity with whoever is like-minded. We are in the process of embarking on our own consultations, and we'll be giving feedback. Whoever moves first, social solidarity is 100% guaranteed. We refuse and we reject any attempt to reduce the constitution of our country to some kind of a disposable document manipulated to save partisan survival, nor to political elites who treat national institutions as instruments of self-preservation.
Maswera sei indeti watoni bindura ndiri supporter weZANU-PF. Ndiri kushoropodza zvikuru this proposed amendment bill. Ndiri kutsutsumwa zvikuru about this proposed amendment bill kutyora kodzero dzevana veZimbabwe. This proposed amendment bill kana rakabudirira riri kubenefita a few people vari muZANU-PF in the likes of vana Kuda Tagwirei, vana Wikina Wachivhayo, vese vari kuita corruption muZANU-PF, vese vari kuwana maillegal tenders. Chinhu chandoda kuyambira vana veZimbabwe ndechekuti this proposed amendment bill richaita kuti Kuda Tagwirei aite president, and ndo vari kupusha this thing. Anditi because ndo vane mari, ndo vari kuwana maillegal tenders mugovernment. Saka chinhu chandoda kuyambira vana veZimbabwe ndechekuti 2030 ndonge yabudirira, munhu achatsiva vaMunangagwa, mark my words, ndikuda Tagwirei. Why? Because ndivo vari kuwana maillegal tenders, ndivo vari kuita corruption munyika, ndivo vane mari. Saka vachagona kutenga each and every MP wega wega kuparliament kuti Kuda Tagwirei aite president. Kana Kuda Tagwirei aita president, mari dzese dzavari kusplasha idzizi vanodzidzosa through corruption. And remember kuti all these cartels, all these criminals, they supporting each other. Ukataza matsotsi ese now they are supporting Kuda Tagwirei. Adit, ukataza matsotsi ese now they are supporting this bill. Adit, sese tinoziziva kuti vaMunangagwa naKuda Tagwirei vanomhanya mabusiness rimwe chete. Zuva iya yemaservice station iya ndiye Kuda Tagwirei navaMunangagwa. That is why manje makuona kuti vaMunangagwa now he is supporting Kuda Tagwirei. And mukataza macartels ese ari muZANU-PF mbavha dzese, they are taking advantage yekuti president now vakukanganwa zvimwe zvinhu, wamusharuko wakura. Saka vakuudzira president zvokuita because now they are enjoying my illegal tenders, they are enjoying mari dzecorruption dzevana veZimbabwe. Anditi Saka mukarega this bill richipasa, zivai kuti the next president achatsiva vamunangagwa 2030 ndikudata gurei, ende kudata gurei achamhanya from 2030 to 2037. And actually anenge achida kusika another term, which means anenge akubva 2037 to 2044. And hapana anomustopa kuti aite izvozvo because vane mari dzacho. Saka ndiri kukumbirisa kuvana veZimbabwe kuti ngatimbosiyanai nemadifferences, ngatimbosiyanai nenyaya kuti unobva kupolitical party ipi, ngatimbosiyanai nenyaya kuti unobva kutribe ipi. Let us put our heads together toita chinhu one. And to defend our rights, to defend our constitution. Because pari kuenda chinhu ichi, kana this bill rakapasa, which means Zimbabwe inenge ya private limited company yana kudata gurei nana Wikino Chivai. And these cartels vari kuzama kubloka General Chiwenga kuti vasava kukwidza, because they know that kuti once General Chiwenga vangopinda pai zvimari zvese zvavari kubaisa havazviwane, because General Chiwenga vanenge vakutsvaga yavo cabinet. Vakuda kudzokeredza futi system yavaiita ivo vana Mnangagwa, system yavaiita pana Mugabe, because Mugabe vakanga vachiyembera vaimuti Mugabe gara chete, because vaiziva kuti vaimora vachiwana maillegal tenders vachiba mari dzenyika. Handi kuzoona manje. Saka iye zvozi Mnangagwa wakura manje, vafana vaya vana Wikino Chivai nana kudata gwire manje vakuuya ne the same system yavaiita pana Mugabe. Handiti iye Mnangagwa chaiye anoziziva kuti kana akafa nhasi kana kudata gwire akasara ari president, vana vake vanosara vari pari right. Ende zvisina kushamisai kuti kana kudata gwire akanzi nhasi ava president anogona kungonongedzera mwana waMnangagwa kuita vice president wake kumashure. Ende Wikino Chivai achipuwa ministry yakakosha vochinyatsa kuba zvakanaka. Vana veZimbabwe, be very careful with these criminal cartels. Ende nyika payakuenda manje yakuenda mumaoko emacriminal cartels. Zviri serious. Don't play with kudata gwirei. Because there's those mbavha dzese dziri kusapotana, kwete zvekutamba, mbavha dzese dziri kupanana mari kuti vadefende chinhu ichi, kuti vatyore coding constitution yevana veZimbabwe. Maita basa ndoitwa Tony Bindura, ndiri supporter weZANU-PF.
Good afternoon, comrades. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of the speakers on this important issue. Salutations to the organizers for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to do so. My name is Fortune Ramakoni, or Comrade Tigwe, from the Revolutionary Workers Group of Zimbabwe. My presentation will focus on why it is important for workers to have an independent platform to oppose the constitution and also to oppose that neoliberal attacks. But before that, just preliminary issues that I need to raise. It is important that organizers have managed to call for this rally on the constitutional crisis. Very important issue. But I have concerns, serious concerns as to the panel itself. When we are inviting workers or when we want workers to engage on an important issue, my feeling or my thinking was that it was important for the organizers to have a panel that represents the variety of views or opinions on the issue, variety of views in terms of the different neoliberal petty bourgeoisie forces who are also calling for action against these maneuvers. The DCP itself included. There are other players like the Tendai CDF. We also have Professor Madukwe saying a lot of good points on this issue as well. And to a large extent also there is a group which is aligned to Nelson Chamisa, important group, which has its views on the importance or otherwise of the constitution issue. So it would have been prudent to include a variety of views on the platform, on the panel. I don't think it was going to be possible, but it would have been necessary to also include views which represent the dominant faction within the ruling party, which is calling for the extension of the term and also for these various constitutional amendments, not necessarily the other faction. The other faction, I think it will be represented here by those comrades who are calling for resistance against these maneuvers. So that is an important preliminary point that I think I should raise, because at the end of the day, we don't want to be seen the panel. It shouldn't be seen as a PR or a press conference that wants to outline its views and its strategies to the working class without offering an opportunity for meaningful engagement and also coming up with the best strategies and ways of trying to to deal with this issue. It shouldn't appear, as comrades are already in the execution mode, implementation mode, as opposed to a deliberation phase where comrades would then offer the working class an opportunity to discuss the issue and to proffer meaningful solutions to the issues itself. When we talk of the constitution, I think workers, comrades should be very clear as to what we are saying, because the constitution itself is not a neutral document. There are others who are fond of saying that we should defend the constitution because it is our shield as in as war. When we try to talk about constitution or the nation or citizens, those are broad terms, and without class content, economic content, it becomes very confusing and also misleading. We should be very clear that the constitution is a document that serves a particular economic and political system, in this case a capitalist system, a semi-colonial capitalist system in Zimbabwe. The constitution at best, it is a reflection of the form, the type of bourgeoisie rule that is necessary or applicable within a given context. And in Zimbabwe, it was a result of the political and economic struggles in the early 2000, which led to the adoption of the constitution in 2013. And by and large, it is a result of the balance of forces and also the weaknesses of the regime or strength at a particular point. It is not a neutral document. So when you see now the dominant faction attempting to amend, it is a sign that they are very confident that the balance of forces is in their favor. The economic interests that they are pushing need to be pushed in a manner that is reflected by an authoritarian, dictatorial approach or form of government, as opposed to a democratic one, and also as opposed to an open one within the bourgeoisie sense itself. So the form of regime, the form of government is not determined by the goodwill of leaders. It cannot be determined by the progressiveness of leaders, but it's determined essentially by the balance of forces within a particular society. So I think comrades should be very aware of that. So when comrades are saying that we need to defend the constitution, they should be aware of what really we are trying to defend. We are defending a document that is there to protect the interests of the capitalist by and large, and a document that is there to ensure that the working class remains subjugated and oppressed by and large. Whatever else, whatever our argument, whatever positions we might have, that is the basis of the matter. So when comrades then are calling for defense of the constitution, comrades should be very clear and should also go beyond the document and also try to analyze the class content of the efforts that are being made, the strategies and the calls that are being made to defend the constitution. So I think it is important that we highlight that issue. I think workers are under very severe economic attacks. The economic crisis on the workers in terms of casualization, in terms of retrenchments, in terms of slave wages, in terms of poor working conditions are issues that are on the record and are issues that are deteriorating by the day, becoming worse by the day. Also, political issues where the democratic space is shrinking, the right to protest, the right to organize, to strike, they are also under attack. But importantly as well, workers are under an organizational crisis where their organs of representation have been severely attacked by the state, have been severely decimated by the state and the employers, to the extent that the main federation of the working class, the ZCTU, its dominant faction is captured, and it has rendered the federation very docile and unable to respond to the needs of the working class by and large. So I think it is important to also highlight that. So the organizational crisis that workers are under as a result of the economic situation and the political attacks is a factor that is very key that comrades should also be able to understand, evaluate, and see how best they can deal with that. But that as it may, it doesn't remove the fundamental principled position that workers can only, or the working people can only have meaningful results from whatever engagement if they participate within the whole discourse as an independent and conscious body. What does this mean? It means that if workers are to be able to win results or to win, to advance their interests, to defend their interests, at most they should be organized independently, and they should then align with other forces within society, sharing the same goals, the same objectives in a temporary manner, in an ad hoc manner, but not subjugating themselves, also submerging their interests or their organizational capacity to other forces, which might be alien forces pursuing different agendas. So I think it is clear that that issue should be raised. The constitutional amendments are very clear. It's an attempt really by the dominant faction of the ruling party to entrench its rule. So, but we should not be simplistic to say that the issue is just about ensuring that the dominant faction, the oligarchs, continue to plunder, to loot, and to engage in corrupt deals for their own benefit as a faction. We should also look beyond that because they serve a particular economic class and economic interests of imperialism. They are agents of imperialism, Chinese, Russian imperialism, and also to a large extent Western imperialism. So the crisis of capital internationally is forcing regimes, not only in Zimbabwe, worldwide, within also the advanced countries like the USA and all those in Europe, Latin America, to adopt a dictatorial form of bourgeoisie rule. Because the crisis itself is reached a terminal phase where, without dictatorial rule, the ruling class cannot be able to contain revolts from the working class, cannot be able to suppress the working class so that it continues to reap super profits. So it's not surprising that the regime here has also adopted that approach, where they would want to entrench itself so that it maintains its rule, it maintains its domination on behalf of imperialism and also on behalf of a certain faction of the local bourgeoisie and the syndicate. So we should be able to understand that, comrades. It is very clear. It's not really about self-interest, self-preservation, or the like. It's also about the economic class they are pushing, they are protecting, the interests they are protecting against the working class, against also the factions of the ruling class, the factions of capital, and the like. This is a very parasitic faction as opposed to a productive faction, one that would prefer a productive economy, even though that proposal is more or less cannot be implemented because of the crisis that is there. So I think from that understanding, you find that within the ruling party itself, they are silent and also muted calls and maneuvers against these constitutional amendments, these attempts by a certain faction to dominate and to be able to rule forever. So that attempt is there. Also within broader society, the petty bourgeoisie, they have suddenly realized that it is important to call for a defense of the constitution. Genuine as that call may be, we should not be we cannot be convinced that their motivation is simply to call for the defense of the constitution. We are aware that the opposition, liberal opposition in its various formations, has been dead for a long time. It has been decimated through objective and subjective forces. So those comrades, also those petty bourgeoisie leaders, have also found an opportunity, an excuse to rally around their whatever they can, so that they also revive themselves in anticipation of an election either in 2028 or in 2030. That is their primary motivation, and also that is what they intend to do. And also, surprisingly, we have comrades from the working class itself who are also buying into that agenda and also attempting to prop that a faction of that collective. So these are we have had numerous, I think, middle class based responses to this constitutional crisis, from the DCP, which is represented here, from the CDF led by Tendai Biti, from other opposition forces, and even also from the church and other forces. We've also had endorsements from business, the Retail Confederation of Retailers in Zimbabwe, and other groups, opposition party, also supporting these amendments for their various interests, self-interests, giving various excuses. So in relation to the preliminary issue that I pointed, you find that at this platform we have a variety of workers belonging to different parties and having different persuasions. So it would have been wise then to also include views that resonate with those. There are workers here who are not very active, who would want the current president to go even up to 2050. And there are workers here who would not want the president to continue in office any longer. And in between, we have a variety of opinions and a variety of strategies, which is not surprising. So as workers, how then should we respond to this issue? Workers in terms of the working people, those formally and informally employed, the poor peasants, the students, the urban poor, and all groups who are exploited and who are under economic hardships. How then should we respond to this issue of the constitution? It is very clear that taking a cue from what the liberals have done, we should also be able to take advantage of this opportunity to push for the working class issues, which issues have always been there, issues also pertaining directly to the constitution, and also issues which are not pertaining directly but which have a bearing on our interests in terms of our livelihood and in terms of our key interests. Issues to do with wages, economic protection, the right to be able to strike, and also democratic rights to organize. How then would workers be able to take advantage of that? I think that is the gist of my presentation, because we have to be very clear. But before going there, why is it not proper, or why is it opportunistic for working class leaders and even for workers to append themselves to a petty bourgeoisie led process? If we go to the, if we have to go to the working class declaration that was done last year on the constitution, which raised important political and economic demands and also an action plan, we will see that what was envisaged in that plan on point 5, on point number, is it 4 or 5, was a working relationship with other class forces, not a structural relationship, not an organizational relationship where we would have structures and workers subordinating themselves to a particular structure, a desk being created or a forum being created. It was an action-oriented, meaning that workers, the middle class, and other sectors of society sharing the same concerns should be in the trenches, not meet in the meetings or in the organizational structures of a particular organization. Why is this important? It is important that workers should have an independent platform to advance their interests, because history has shown that wherever workers append themselves or are subordinated to a structure that is called that is led by petty bourgeoisie forces, or that includes petty bourgeoisie and bourgeoisie forces, at the end of the day, the interests of the workers are subordinated. They are not implemented. They are not even advanced for all to see. So history has proven that even internally. History has proven that even by the history of the formation and the formation of the MDC up to its demise, and also 2017, where workers then blindly supported a coup that was essentially meant to rectify factional imbalances within the ruling party. And what happened? What happened is exactly what we are facing today, where workers are under a severe authoritarian and neoliberal regime. Why? Because workers are not able to have an independent, conscious, and militant intervention into these issues. Workers need to have an independent. Why is it important that workers need to intervene independently? Because in as much as it advances their interests, it also builds their confidence. It also raises their consciousness, and in time for future battles, in time for also for battles which are more important, which are more direct. So subordinating working class organizations, or subordinating working class methods to petty bourgeoisie or middle class methods, we are subordinating the confidence of the working class, we are subordinating consciousness of the working class in an umbrella term that is mainly called citizens or a nation. Those are superficial terms with no class content, and which are being used by various protagonists, because they know at the end of the day the system that is there is a capitalist system that serves the bourgeoisie and that serves the petty bourgeoisie. So they don't need to talk about economic issues. The petty bourgeoisie don't need to talk about economic issues. All they need is to defend the constitution so that they have an opportunity at state power, so that their interests are also advanced within the capitalist system. And to that extent, they are also prepared, because of their current position, they are also prepared to involve other sectors so that their agenda is probed. And at the end of the day, whatever then accrues to the working class is accidental. It's not intentional. So, comrades, I think that is important. Aspects of working class organizing are, as I've highlighted, is that workers need to be able to be independent. But to be independent, it means that workers need a platform that is very clear and that speaks to their demands. What platform is that? Is there a platform that is available as we speak that can advance the working class issues in terms of the constitutional crisis? One would then say, no, there is none. The main federation, the federation is decimated. Unions are weak. The leadership within the various unions, they don't share the same ideological and political views. So it will be difficult. So what then should we do concretely in order to lay out our position and also to lay out our methods in terms of this constitutional issue? My humble view, is that workers, through their leaders, putting pressure on their leaders, should convene an independent platform to deal with this constitutional issue. That platform should be convened. It can, and I think it is possible that platform can be the Washandis, the Seventh Working People's Collective in its current form, or in other form that workers would then be able to agree on, or anything else that is outside the Washandis, the Sevens, but one that is dominated and that is led by working class organizations, including students, including the poor peasants, including also the informal sector. And that is a platform that can be called a united front, because it comprises of sections of society who are identifiable by similar economic situation. And once that platform has been set up, then it will then be possible for that platform, in terms of its activities and in terms of its approach, to then work with other platforms who are also calling for defense of the constitution, and not the other way around. I'm very skeptical. I'm not very fond of the approach where comrades would then encourage workers to be part of a petty bourgeoisie platform that is advancing its interests, that is also defending it. Why are we not calling for an independent platform? Are we not confident that the workers can lead this fight? Are we not confident that the workers can indeed stand up and defend the constitution on their own, and not necessarily on their own, but also as an independent platform working with other platforms and not really as an appendage of another of any other platform? So that is my position that I've always tried to elaborate, not to convince comrades who are already at an execution phase, but also to lay these points before the working class, so that the workers can also be aware of the various views that are there on this constitution. Whether it will be possible for workers to be given an opportunity to discuss and to come up with a viable solution or an approach, that is another thing. I know that my view will, for the time being, be in the minority, which is not an issue. That is the essence of a democratic debate. That is the essence of working class engagement. But what I cannot do, or what is impermissible, is for comrades to keep quiet and to allow for other processes being led by other class forces to dominate the working class, and to assume and then to call to tell workers that this is the best approach that can be taken. That is a lie. And comrades, that is in essence, that is the characteristic of opportunism. Where working class leaders, tried and tested working class leaders, would then want to prop up a petty bourgeoisie form in the form similar to what the Democratic Socialist Alliance in America is doing in the Democratic Party. It's a left wing of the Democratic Party, I think, and I'm sure that that is a view that other comrades might want to take, so that at the end of the day they are also part of that platform, and which is unfortunate, and which in any case will not lead to the advancement of the working class interests. So I think, comrades, in summary, these are my views. I think it is important that comrades agree, or to ensure that the Vashandi Zisebenzi is the lead organization that is advancing the interests of the advanced sections and the militant sections of the working class on this issue and other issues, as an independent body that would then converge with other platforms in action on the ground, and not to structurally align itself within other petty bourgeoisie-led forces. And also, it is important that if that is possible, workers should then be able to find other alternative platforms where independent organization is advanced and is implemented, so that workers' interests are at the center. Workers themselves are actively involved, and they are not submerged in a superficial and misleading term called the citizens of the nation. There is nothing like that. The middle class is very comfortable with that, because it is based on the assumption, or on the reality of economic exploitation of capital by capital on the working class. So thank you, comrades, for the time. Apologies for the long audio. Thank you so much, comrades.
Comrades, thank you for joining this national conversation on the proposed constitution amendment and the position of the DCP. Let me be clear from the outset. This issue is not about personalities. It is not about political parties. It is about constitutional legitimacy. The 2013 Constitution is the People's Covenant. It sets the rules for how power is obtained, exercised, and limited. When those rules, especially those governing tenure of office, are changed without the direct consent of the people, the matter stops being political and becomes constitutional. Our position is simple. Any amendment that alters presidential tenure or the people's right to choose their leaders cannot be done by Parliament alone. It requires a national referendum, the direct voice of the citizens. Without a referendum, such a change amounts to a constitutional coup, which is the use of legal procedures to achieve what the Constitution itself forbids. Therefore, the DCP will act peacefully, lawfully, and firmly on these three fronts. First, we will pursue constitutional litigation to defend the letter and spirit of the Constitution. Secondly, we will engage Parliament, commissions, and public bodies to insist on proper procedure, public participation, and constitutional compliance. And then thirdly, the citizens, through the People's Resolution, will roll out civic education and mobilization so that citizens themselves become custodians and defenders of their constitution. And let this also be understood. If domestic remedies become ineffective, we will pursue regional and international remedies in defense of constitutional order. Because constitutional legitimacy is not only a national principle, It is also protected under regional democratic norms. Our objective is not confrontation. Our objective is legitimacy. We are not opposing government. We are defending the rules that make government lawful. A stable nation is built not on the permanence of leaders, but on the permanence of rules. Defending the Constitution is defending our future.
Hello, everyone on this platform. Thank you so much for the opportunity that you have given me to represent especially women and children. Okay, mina ngizakhuluma kancane nje mixing shona English and lesindebele ngoba ngingumuntu wakhona lapha ekhaya koBulawayo. Mina I feel ukuthi into le esayenzwa kumbe ngathi esiyenzwa iZANU-PF imbi kakhulu. Ngani ngoba ama forefathers ethu bahamba empini besiyolwisana labahlukuluzi benotho ukwenzela ukuthi thina izizalwane zabo sibe lenhlalakahle lapha ekhaya kwelakithi eZimbabwe. Manje kathesi ke into esiyenzakala ukuthi uMnangagwa labantu bakhe yibo asebe benefita, bayathatha inotho yethu beyise China, bayathatha inotho yethu bezinika bona ngokwabo. Khathesi into esibuhlungu kakhulu ngeyokuthi ngo-2013 savumelana njengomphakathi ukuthi sibe le constitution saba layo. Into enhle nge-constitution yethu ngeyokuthi singaba lo mongameli kumele aseve 5 years, avotelwe futhi abe seseve ezinye 5 years. Kodwa kathesi manje uMnangagwa yena usefuna ukuthi aseve, vele angazi ukuthi yena ufuna ukuthi azafike nini ngoba vele ungezwa umuntu esithi hayi lapho kade ngimele ngifike khona sokumele ngiye phambili. That is wrong. Ngibuyele futhi back to my statement on that day ukuthi yena uma wayehluleka ukuthi agcwalise izifiso zakhe nge-10 years aziphiwa zona, yini aza kuyenza ngesikhathi esincane i-2 years. Mina ngombono wami ngibona ukuthi yena labantu bakhe bafuna ukuthi bebhidlize thina umphakathi, bephinde bebhidlize futhi ilizwe lethu, beyenze umathanda. Lokho ngibona ukuthi into embi kakhulu. So thina njengama-human rights defenders kumele sime ngamazwane, sibone ukuthi ilizwe lethu libuyela back kubanini balo, ngoba singayekela iZANU izasiyenza isichaka. Yeah, in short ndingangokuthi ndozva ndingadanga ukuthi nditaure parizvino. Ndotenda zvikuru nemukana wamandipa, kunyangwe hangu ndandisina kugadzirira kuti ndingave nemukana wakadai. Haiwa, ndinotenda uyezvo ndofarawo kuva pano nevamwe tichipanana mazano, tichiona kuti tingaite sei nenyika yedu yabvarurwa kudai ichiri kuramba uchibvarurwa nevanhu vari kufunga kuti vari kutiitira zvakanaka ivo vari kutikanganisira. Maita henyu, ndatenda.
Good afternoon. I think it's evening, comrades. Greetings. I hope we are all benefiting and gearing up from this rally. My name is Lance Mpofu. I'm a member of ISO, the General Coordinator, but also representing the Zimbabwe Labour Center and a section of the Vashandi Zisebenzi. My contribution to this rally is only to actually rally comrades towards joining the Vashandi Zisebenzi. We are appealing to all those comrades present here who feel strongly about this issue and want to take on this fight in defense of the Constitution. As already alluded to by Comrade Tafi and Comrade Munya on the functions of Vashandi Zisebenzi. This platform was formed last year, and we produced the People's Declaration, which most of its deliberations have also been included on the declaration of the CDP. As such, Vashandi Zisebenzi is a functional workers organization that seeks to build consensus among the working class, but also rallying those serious comrades who want to fight, who want to engage in this fight for the defense of the Constitution. So as such, we encourage comrades, those who are really, really serious, because we have moved from the Labour Forum to form Vashandi Zisebenzi, so that we have those comrades that are really serious about this fight. So we encourage you comrades to get in touch with myself, Lance Mpofu, or Comrade Kamuka, so that we can then aid you onto Vashandi Zisebenzi. But also we want you to give us your full details, including your union or organization, and which thematic desk you would like to participate in on the DCP. So when you get to the Vashandi Zisebenzi, we then deploy you accordingly to your request on the desk that you might want to participate in. This is precisely because we'll be coming to you in your various provinces, regions, or cities and towns when these structures are being formed. These desks that also, so that they need to be functional. Because we also think that we should build from below. This is why the structures of the CDP have to be replicated right across all the sections of our societies, but also coming from below at district level, at provincial level, or regional level. So it's important that we do that exercise. So we'll be coming to you under the Citizens Engagement and Agency Desk. So comrades, feel free to get in touch so that we can then begin to make this process work. So there are particular desks that we're interested in as labor. There's the labor desk, there's the students and youth desk, there's the women's desk, the political parties desk, political parties and organizations desk, but also there should be a socio-economic rights desk. So these are the main desks that we feel as the workers we should really populate and be part of, so that we really push the working class agenda in those thematic thematic desks. So yeah, so comrades, this is our way forward, and we hope comrades are going to take up this opportunity that we've been given by this rally to also gather the forces together and try to move forward as a class, representing our class interests. Thank you, comrades.
We mama, we mama, we mama. We mama, we mama, we mama. Yes, socialism. Mama, we ma. We ma. Mama, we. Mama, we mama, we ma. Mama, we. Mama, we mama, we ma. Mama, we. Yes, socialism. Mama, we ma. We ma. Mama, we ma. Tulungakal, mama we ma. Tulungakal, mama we. Yes, socialism, mama we ma. We ma, mama we ma. Tulungakal, mama we ma. Tulungakal, mama we. Yes, socialism, mama we ma. We ma, mama we ma. Amandla ngawethu ngenkani, amandla ngawethu ngenkani. Viva socialism, viva abasha capitalism. Pasi nezvigananda, pasi nevanhu vanoda kuchinja constitution kuti vadle ivo nemhuri yavo, isu tichifa nezvara. Todya marara here.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak to this news channel today. I welcome all of you listeners everywhere where you are. And I think the major issue which the conveners of this group have asked me to speak about is about our views as the National Democratic Working Group vis-a-vis the 2030 national crisis that our nation is currently facing. The first thing is that our position is as clear as from the beginning. We have been speaking about it, against it, since the time when it started to emerge within our nation, that there was an intention by the current Emerson Mnangagwa regime to extend and prolong his term of office to 2030. The issue is facing both legal, moral, and political challenges in that it is a fight and a defeat against the dreams and the wishes and the aspirations of the majority of the masses of our people. It is immorally reprehensible for anybody, like what all other progressive and democratic forces are currently saying in Zimbabwe, for a regime to try and prolong its existence in power via constitutional manipulation. The process that we are currently going in Zimbabwe at the present moment is purely constitutional manipulation, which others describe as the constitutional mutilation of the Zimbabweans agreed tenets of governance. So in that, many people have been seeking to understand the position of several Zimbabweans on their position in response to ZANU-PF's machinations to remain in power without the consent of the government. I think, as said by many people, I think you have heard so many legal views by eminent lawyers, prominent lawyers, and political actors in our country concerning the constitutional parameters and requirements on how such an amendment to extend a term of office cannot succeed without the consent of the government. The major ones being that it must meet the threshold of the referendum, where two referendums have to be carried out, and make sure that the people are in agreement. The first referendum being a referendum on accepting the removal of the term of office provision in the Constitution,
If the parliament passes it, it needs to be taken for a referendum. Not only that, if the incumbent, Emerson Mnangagwa, wants himself to proceed to 2030, it should also be taken to a referendum whether the people of Zimbabwe are in agreement with it or not. Those are the legal issues that have been spoken so loudly by several legal minds in our country, and I think every Zimbabwean is now accustomed to it and now knows the constitutional requirements for the extension to happen or to take place. Secondly, also some people were really interested on the route the National Democratic Working Group took to give notice to the African Union Commission chairperson, His Excellency Yusuf, that in terms of international law that governs members of the African Union, there is a requirement which prohibits the incumbent regimes to prolong or extend their terms of office in their various nations. This was done after a long struggle in the African continent, when many incumbent heads of state refused to leave office after the expiry of their 2 terms. It happened quite in many countries. Firstly, it happened. It started happening when Zambia obtained its democracy and the collapse of one-party state in 1992, when Frederick Schluer became president of that country. After the expiry of his 2 terms in office, he wanted to manipulate the constitution to get a 3rd term. Sam Nujoma in Namibia did the same, although Sam Nujoma succeeded, but those in the aspirations of Frederick Schluer in Zambia failed. So also it happened in Malawi that after the expiry of the term of office of Bakili Muluzi, after he served 2 terms, he also wanted to extend a 3rd term. The resistance which was done by the people of Malawi and made sure that he will not succeed in his agenda and machinations. Olusegun Obasanjo in Nigeria, after completing his 2 terms of office, started exactly using the same route which ZANU-PF and Emerson Mnangagwa are currently using in Zimbabwe, using and manipulating the youth gangs in Nigeria, using finances to buy the people who have been involved in quite a number of many eminent and prominent activities in Nigeria, like musicians, footballers, and many others, for him to extend his term of office. Not only that, also Nkurunziza from Burundi, after the expiry of his term of office, also attempted to have an extension of his term of office, and he failed again. So all these examples that I've given you failed to succeed in their agenda to extend their terms of office, and created internal turmoil, discontentment, rebellion against those governments. So after the African Union has noticed the ambitions of the extensions of office causing instability within its member states, they sat down and put in place what is called the Constitutive Act. The Constitutive Act is the law that governs the parameters or operations of the members of the African Union. And in its Article 31, it provides that there mustn't be an unconstitutional change of government. However, that provision was ambiguous, because to them, They didn't know what an unconstitutional change of government means. They had to gather in Lome and make a declaration on what constitutes an unconstitutional change of government. And the following 5 acts were prohibited and constituting a coup against the governed if it happens. The first one is a complete hard military takeover of the government. Number 2, the use of rebels to overthrow a legitimate government. Number 3, the hiring of mercenaries to seize power. What I was saying is that the provision for the use of mercenaries to overthrow governments has been regarded as an unconstitutional change of government. I think this has been invited after what we all know and witnessed as Zimbabweans of what happened during the early 2000s when mercenaries from South Africa wanted to go and overthrow Theodore, a dictator in Equatorial Guinea called Theodore Nguema. I think these are the people who tried to push that provision, make the Loma a Lome to protect the use of government from the. But on its 50th provision, it said that any incumbent government that manipulates the constitution for its prolongation or extension of term of office constitutes a coup. So what is happening in Zimbabwe in terms of the laws that governs the operations of the African Union is a coup. I saw some arguments of some indecorous, regime propagandists who call themselves Barakash, saying Job Scala must understand that a sovereign nation has the right for it to make its own laws. And, within the parameters of the provision of this parliament and so forth. But there are certain laws that are prohibited to be passed on by parliament as they constitute a violation of the African Union provisions. And every nation is obligated in terms of the mechanisms created by the African Union for them to pass such laws in their own parliaments. So a law to prolong or extend a term of office for the incumbent is one such law which is prohibited in terms of the African Union and international law. It is prohibited for any government to try and manipulate a constitution to extend its life of existence as a government. So if they don't understand that, it means ZANU-PF is a very serious challenge in as far as they should understand international law. So in that note, they should be prepared for themselves to go and answer to our application that we are going to make to the African Commission. There are instruments and also there are instruments and also institutions that have been created by the African Union to solve issues of disputes when citizens find themselves under oppression, torture, dictatorship, and a humanitarian crisis of human rights abuses like the ones that we are currently going through in our nation of Zimbabwe. They created the African Commission that is headquartered in Banjul in Gambia, where citizens of member states are entitled to go and file matters before that commission to raise a complaint against a member state, and the state will be asked to answer to the issues that could have been raised by its own citizens. And if the state rejects what the citizens will be raising, there will be a full hearing at the African Commission in a form of a trial for them to come to a determination to see who is right between the citizen who has raised those issues and also the government. So we have raised our stakes higher. We have escalated to the next level. We are waiting for the gazetting of these laws by the Speaker of Parliament, as enunciated recently by the agencies of the regime, that they want now to gazette it so that we will have cogent evidence that truly there is a coup in motion in our nation of Zimbabwe. At the present moment, we have been busy. The few days ago and also up to today, in assembling a big legal team coming from all the four corners of Africa, from Tanzania, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from England, and also from the United States of America.